The assistance of my boss's son in moving boxes took an unexpected turn that left me utterly astonished. It was one of those pristine spring mornings, the sort that allows you to momentarily overlook the lingering ache in your back from the winter's grasp. I had risen with the sun, cradling a cup of tepid coffee in my kitchen, my mind weaving a mental tapestry of all the items I needed to gather for my journey. As my lease approached its conclusion, I found myself on the brink of a significant transition, ready to downsize after an enduring 23 years in the same abode. Parting with a dwelling steeped in memories, where each chipped corner and worn cabinet handle whispered tales of the past, was no simple task. Yet, I stood prepared. At least, that's what I convinced myself of. A moving stipend was graciously provided by the company, proving to be quite beneficial. Yet, it lacked the additional hands I so desperately needed, and I was well aware of the folly in attempting to lift those heavy boxes alone. I had already strained something in my shoulder last week while hauling my old printer down to the car. When my boss, Miriam, reached out to inquire about the progress of my move and nonchalantly suggested sending her son to lend a hand, I found myself agreeing before fully contemplating the implications. I was aware of Jason. Our paths had crossed once before, during a festive gathering at the office. He presented his mother with a new scarf and remained largely silent, yet I couldn't help but recall how striking he appeared. He possessed a serene assurance that many men develop in their 30s, a quality that requires no validation. A handful of courteous words, a firm handshake, and then it was over. When Miriam mentioned he would arrive by 10, I found myself harboring little expectation. At precisely 9:58, the doorbell chimed. I pushed the door ajar, and there he stood, tall and composed, clad in well-loved jeans and a weathered flannel shirt. With his sleeves rolled up and a small tool bag casually slung over one shoulder, he exuded an air of readiness and purpose. His smile lit up the moment I opened the door, genuine and warm, far removed from the usual polite smiles exchanged in office corridors. "I am Miss Harper Wright," she replied, extending her hand once more. "My name is Jason. My mother mentioned that you might benefit from a touch of strength today." I chuckled, moving to the side. "Refer to me as Diane." Indeed, with a sense of urgency. I might have misjudged my capacity to tackle the monumental task of clearing out a lifetime's worth of clutter on my own. He entered, surveying the living room, now overtaken by piles of half-filled boxes, some tightly sealed, while others remained ajar, their flaps protruding like tiny paper wings. "You have accomplished much already." "I have completed all the straightforward tasks," I remarked. "What remains are the tasks I have been delaying." "Ah, the relics of the past, those dusty files, cherished books, faded photo albums, and the cluttered garage." Jason smiled broadly. "It seems we are about to embark on a journey through some forgotten recollections." He pushed his sleeves up further and set to work. I indicated what required lifting and packing, making an effort not to linger too closely. Yet, there was an undeniable quality to his presence that stirred something within me, not negatively, but in a manner that heightened my sensitivity to the stillness that lingered in the spaces we shared. It was as if he presented me with a framed photo that had quietly slipped behind a cabinet. It captured a moment of my late husband and me, during the early days of our life in this house we had just purchased. Jason regarded it for a brief moment before handing it over to me. "Your expression radiates joy in this moment." I inclined my head in agreement. "We existed once upon a time, in a distant past. He departed from this world 8 years ago." "I'm sorry," he said softly. "The weight of such a loss. It lingers, doesn't it?" "No," I confessed, my fingers gliding along the rim of the frame. "It integrates into your very essence. A pulse that resonates deeply." Silence enveloped the moment as we resumed our tasks, yet, an undeniable change had occurred. After that moment, his gaze held a gentle warmth, a subtle respect that took me by surprise. For the next hour, we found ourselves in the garage, sifting through boxes filled with forgotten tools, paint cans, and items that had remained untouched for years. He stumbled upon an old wood carving that had slipped from my memory, a project I had embarked upon in my early 40s, yet never brought to completion. "You created this?" he inquired, lifting it high. It was challenging, somewhat inconsistent, yet quite commendable for someone just starting out. "I certainly did. Once, I found great joy in the art of crafting with my hands." Life intervened. He examined it with a lingering gaze. "It would be wise to return to it. Your perception of shape is remarkable." The compliment was modest in size, yet it struck a chord far deeper than one might expect. Perhaps it was the manner in which he expressed it, not merely as a gesture of politeness, but with a sincerity that suggested he truly meant every word. It was as if he had glimpsed a part of me that had remained hidden for years. By noon, we had achieved significant strides. The living room lay nearly empty, and I urged him to pause for a moment. As the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, I prepared turkey sandwiches for us, and we settled at the quaint table by the kitchen window. I inquired, attempting to keep the conversation light, "What do you enjoy doing when you're not assisting your mom's colleagues with their house moves?" He let out a soft chuckle. "I engage in freelance work, focusing on design consulting, dabbling in architecture, primarily concentrating on interior renovations, and tackling small projects, nothing particularly glamorous." "That clarifies the presence of the tool bag," I remarked. "Your hands possess the craftsmanship of a true builder." Jason's gaze lingered on me for a heartbeat, his face a mask of inscrutability. "I enjoy crafting environments that evoke emotions, transcending mere functionality to become personal sanctuaries where individuals feel a sense of belonging." I inclined my head with deliberation. Such a rarity in today's world. For a time, we lingered in quietude, savoring our meal while observing the breeze dance through the trees beyond the window. There was something ineffable about that moment. The stillness, the feeling of mutual comprehension, the way he gazed at me, not with sympathy, but with genuine curiosity, with a palpable awareness. Suddenly, he inquired, "Was it difficult?" Releasing the ties to the home. I hesitated before responding. "Indeed, though not for the reasons one might assume. It's neither the walls nor the yard nor the floor plan. It is the specters. They remain silent, yet they harbor a strong aversion to change." He smiled, a gesture not of mockery, but of contemplation. "At times, it requires the presence of a fresh soul to find harmony with the lingering specters of the past." The words lingered in my mind. Long after we resumed our packing, long after he had hefted the final heavy box into the hallway, even as he prepared to depart, with dust clinging to his shirt and a bead of sweat glistening at his temple, I discovered an unwillingness to let the day slip away. Once more, I expressed my gratitude as I escorted him to the door. "At any moment," he responded. He came to a halt. "Would it be all right if I returned tomorrow? It appears that I have a moment to spare, and it feels as though we have merely begun our journey." A sensation began to awaken within my chest. Perhaps it was a sense of gratitude. Perhaps it was a sense of wonder. Perhaps it was an emotion I had not experienced in ages. "I would appreciate that," I murmured softly. "I would greatly appreciate that." With the door clicking shut behind him, I found myself leaning against it, my heart fluttering in a way I hadn't anticipated. Today, it wasn't just the boxes that were in motion, there was a stirring within me as well. The following morning, I found myself lingering over the act of brushing my hair, extending the ritual beyond its usual duration. I applied a delicate rose-tinted lipstick that had lain untouched for months. It wasn't out of a desire to impress Jason. That was the narrative I crafted for myself. Yet, it was the warmth of caring that stirred something within once more. A peculiar energy enveloped the house, as if the very air had transformed, stirring something dormant within me. Jason made his entrance at approximately 10:30, a handful of minutes later than he had the previous day. A wave of relief washed over me, nearly bringing a laugh to my lips as I spotted him on the porch, that familiar relaxed smile gracing his face, a tray of iced coffees balanced in his hands. He extended one towards me, a knowing smile on his face. "I thought you might appreciate something cold today," he remarked. "You're already spoiling me," I replied, accepting the drink with gratitude. "Maintain this momentum, and I may just have to bring you on board officially." He spoke of fairness in trade. "You provide me with sandwiches. I elevate objects. Let's consider this matter settled." We began in the bedroom closet, the final genuine peak to conquer before I could sense that the transition was genuinely in motion. The space brimmed with garments long untouched, relics of memories tucked away in boxes, and a drawer overflowing with an assortment of scarves, each one too cherished to part with. While Jason wrestled with the weighty bins, I perched on the bed's edge, sifting through a collection of aged journals. At one moment, I unlatched a small velvet box that was unfamiliar to me. Within lay a delicate silver bracelet, a cherished gift from my husband to commemorate our 15th anniversary. It had been years since I last laid eyes on it. My breath hitched in my throat. Jason observed, "Are you all right?" I nodded, allowing silence to envelop the moment before I found my voice. The bracelet rested lightly in my palm, its coolness contrasting sharply with the unexpected heaviness of the memory it held. I flipped it over and examined the inscription on the reverse side. "We remain unchanged. Forever." This was a gift from my husband, bestowed upon me in the year preceding his passing. I spoke at last, my tone gentler than I had meant it to be. We found ourselves navigating through a tumultuous period. Labor, wellness, existence. Everything was converging in on itself. And then, on a quiet night, he simply handed me this, without any grand speech or flourish. A mere glance, accompanied by this bracelet. Jason settled beside me, maintaining a respectful distance yet close enough for me to sense the comforting warmth of his presence. "It seems he truly caught sight of you." "He did," I murmured, even when I couldn't recognize my own reflection. We lingered in the stillness for a moment. "Take your time. There is no requirement to occupy the stillness." That was a truly exceptional occurrence, a man who understood the art of embracing silence with ease. Then he uttered a remark that took me by surprise. "I must admit, I never truly perceived my mother in this light, as an individual who experienced existence prior to my arrival. Prior to commencing the day's tasks. Prior to embracing motherhood." I glanced in his direction. How effortlessly we can overlook it, don't you think? Individuals possess multiple layers. We do not always embody the roles we assume. He inclined his head with deliberation. "Perhaps that is what I find enjoyable about assisting you with your move. It transcends mere boxes. It is narratives. Fragments of your past self and echoes of your present being." His words carried a softness that enveloped my heart and found a home within me. Unsure of how to reply, I offered a smile and presented him with a box filled with vintage records. "If you seek to understand my past, perhaps this will shed some light." He chuckled, sifting through the pile. Fleetwood Mac, Joni Mitchell, Carole King. "Your sense of style is impeccable. Do you really believe I would be the type of woman to leave her music until the very end?" I playfully provoked. He gazed at me then, truly gazed, and remarked, "I believe you're the type of woman who reserves the most significant pieces for the end." There was a certain quality in his words that flushed my cheeks with warmth. I had grown unaccustomed to being perceived in that manner. Not merely as an employee or a neighbor, but as a woman with a rich tapestry of history woven into her being. As we toiled for a few more hours, each passing moment grew increasingly familiar, weaving a tapestry of shared experience. In a fleeting moment, as I extended my hand toward a box perched on the top shelf, I felt my balance waver ever so slightly. Jason's hands found my waist, anchoring me just before I could falter. For a fleeting moment, we stood mere inches apart, allowing me to catch the glimmers of green dancing within his hazel eyes. He held on for a moment longer. I did not either. Be cautious, he murmured, his tone barely above a whisper. Avoiding pain is a natural instinct. I whispered that I was fine, yet deep down, uncertainty lingered within me. In that moment, a certain fragility lingered in the air. It was more than mere physical proximity, it was an emotional connection that ran deeper, and that frightened me more than I was willing to acknowledge. As we settled in for lunch, I noticed his gaze fixed upon me. Not in a manner that unsettled me, but in a way that made me feel desired, as though I remained seen in a world that frequently overlooked women like myself. I tend to analyze every detail, so I make an effort to appear composed on the surface. That's quite an impressive trick, I remarked. Please impart that knowledge to me. He let out a hearty laugh. I sense there's a reservoir of strength within you that you don't fully reveal. The praise hung in the air, a delicate thread weaving our connection tighter. I found myself unable to deflect it as I typically would. I allowed it to rest, to seep in, to envelop me with its warmth from the inside out. As he prepared to depart, the sun had descended, filtering a warm golden glow through the slats of the blinds. He halted at the threshold, glancing back in my direction. I will be available tomorrow, should you still require assistance. I murmured gently, though not solely with the boxes. Jason locked his eyes with mine, an unspoken tension dancing between us. Until tomorrow, then. The door clicked shut, leaving me in the dimming glow, a sensation of change washing over me once more. A prospect, uncertain yet tangible. The boxes gradually emptied, yet within me, something else was just starting to swell. The following day carried an unmistakable sense of change. The dwelling, previously overwhelmed by boxes and the resonance of bygone moments, began to exude an unexpected sense of openness. Not solely in a physical sense, but also on an emotional level. Space had opened up for inhalation, for contemplation, for the emergence of the unfamiliar. Jason made his entrance just after 10, accompanied by that familiar gentle knock on the door and his ever-present, easy smile. This time, he arrived empty-handed, without the familiar warmth of coffee in tow. Instead, he clutched a modest paperback. I thought you might appreciate these, he remarked, extending them to me as I opened the door. Within lay 2 freshly baked croissants from a quaint cafe near downtown, their warmth still lingering. Now you're certainly spoiling me, I remarked, stepping aside to grant him entry. You've earned it, he responded. The burden of this place has rested upon your shoulders for quite some time now. We shared breakfast at the counter, just like old friends do, without any pretense or formality. The kitchen, adorned with its chipped countertops and faded wallpaper, exuded a newfound warmth, as if it were rediscovering its essence as a home. Subsequently, we transitioned to the sunroom. A handful of boxes remained, their contents a nostalgic collection of aged art supplies, canvases, brushes, and half-used tubes of acrylic paint, each whispering stories of creativity long past. Jason knelt beside one of the boxes, retrieving a small, incomplete landscape. The brush strokes were daring, slightly chaotic, yet brimming with feeling. Did you create this painting? He inquired. After a moment of uncertainty, I gave a slight nod. Long ago, in a time when the world was less chaotic. He grasped it with care, as if it held great significance. It is truly exquisite. Your grip is formidable. I once did. It has been more than 10 years since I last picked up a brush. What holds us back? I shrugged, a sudden awareness of the dull ache settling in my chest. I believe I have ceased to grant myself the freedom to create solely for my own enjoyment. Amidst the hustle and bustle of life, moments of stillness emerge, and in that delicate balance, the essence of your former self may fade from memory. Jason rested against the doorframe, the painting still cradled in his hands. It is time to begin anew, exclusively for oneself. Exclusively for you. His words fell gently, akin to a stone sinking into still water. I chose not to respond. I had no need to. My expression revealed a peculiar blend of sorrow and yearning. We immersed ourselves in an afternoon that resonated with a sense of the sacred. He bore the load, while I arranged the pieces. We exchanged tales of whimsical childhood mishaps and past romances that never quite found their footing. There existed no burden to dazzle. Nothing but honesty. Two souls coexisting authentically within the same realm. In a fleeting moment, as we hoisted a box in unison, our hands brushed against each other. Neither of us budged an inch. "You've got paint on your fingers," he remarked, a smile playing on his lips. I found myself sifting through the collection of art supplies. "It complements you beautifully." That unadorned sentence stirred something within me. Words eluded me, and thus I remained silent. Yet, my gaze remained on his face for a moment longer than it ought to have. The delicate sprinkle of freckles adorned his cheek, and I observed how his lips formed a subtle curve whenever he was lost in thought. Subsequently, we paused for a moment in the backyard. The sun dipped toward the horizon, stretching long, golden shadows across the expanse of the lawn. I poured a couple of lemonades and we settled on the steps, gazing out at the unruly garden. "This place possesses a serene beauty," Jason remarked, even amidst the weeds. A smile graced my lips. "That encapsulates my sentiments on most days." He gazed at me then, his expression a mystery. "May you realize that the opportunity to blossom anew is yours to embrace." His tone held a weight that caused me to draw in my breath a touch too quickly, as if the conversation had shifted beyond the mere topic of the garden. It was as if he could see through the layers I had yet to recognize I still carried. We lingered in quietude for what felt like an eternity, savoring our lemonade as the gentle breeze enveloped us. As the sun began its descent, casting a warm glow, I rose to make my way indoors. Jason trailed behind. As we re-entered the hallway, I faltered a bit on one of the creaky floorboards beneath my feet. He extended his arm with an instinctive grace, encircling my waist and providing a steadying presence. "Are you all right?" he inquired, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, my breath hitching ever so slightly at the proximity between us. His hand lingered on my waist. The rhythm of my heart echoed in my chest, more pronounced than I was willing to acknowledge. Yet, neither of us chose to retreat. I believe I started, only to halt thereafter. I believe I've lost touch with the sensation of being truly seen, of being embraced. Jason's gaze sought out my own. "You are worthy of both, and not merely in a fleeting manner." The atmosphere in the room was thick, laden not with fear or confusion, but with truths that lingered unvoiced. Amidst the unspoken feelings that had subtly accumulated between us during those days filled with boxes and forgotten tales, yet we maintained our boundaries. Not at this moment. Yet, there was an undeniable quality in the manner his fingers hesitated before releasing their grip, as he glanced my way while gathering his bag to depart. "I'll return tomorrow," he murmured gently. "I understand," I said, lingering in the doorway as he emerged into the twilight of the evening. "I shall remain here." As the door clicked shut behind me, I lingered in that moment, the air thick with the weight of unspoken words. Something within me had unfurled, an unassuming, blossoming pain I had not experienced in ages. For the first time in what felt like ages, a sense of fear eluded me. The last day of the move arrived more quickly than I had anticipated. A handful of boxes remained, filled with sentimental items I had yet to summon the courage to confront. The sun hung high in the sky as Jason made his entrance, his shirt slightly rumpled, yet his smile remained effortlessly warm. This time, he arrived empty-handed, bringing only his presence, and in that moment, it seemed to suffice. "Morning," he remarked, as he entered the room. "Morning," I replied, my voice carrying a warmth I hadn't anticipated. "Are you prepared for the final round?" He nodded, yet neither of us made a move toward the stack of boxes just yet. Instead, we found ourselves wandering back to the kitchen, drawn by an unspoken need for one last moment of tranquility before the heaviness of farewell could settle in. Our words were few and far between. It was not an awkward moment. The space was brimming. The atmosphere enveloped us, brimming with unspoken words we had yet to voice. After a brief interlude, we at last made our way back to the living room. I motioned toward a box resting by the window. That box is brimming with aged correspondence, from companions, from my partner, even from the echoes of my younger self. It has been years since I last opened them. Jason knelt beside it, tracing a finger along the edge. Letters serve as vessels that transport us through time. Have you ever immersed yourself in a book and lost track of the year you're in? Always, I replied with a gentle smile. He raised his eyes to meet mine, his gaze holding steady for a moment longer. You are no longer the same woman who occupied this space just days prior. I inclined my head ever so slightly. Negative. He stood there, his voice barely above a whisper. No, you have been shouldering a heavy burden in silence. Yet now, it feels as though you are finally allowing yourself to breathe out. My eyes fluttered in astonishment at the uncanny precision of that sensation. As if he had observed my heart gradually revealing itself in silence until this very moment. Jason inhaled deeply. A thought has been occupying my mind lately. Concerning you. Concerning this matter. He chose not to elaborate, and I refrained from pressing him for more. I have just listened. I never anticipated this unfolding, he remarked. I believed I was lending a hand to my mother's colleague by assisting with a few boxes. Yet, everything changed when our paths crossed. And you defied my expectations. I swallowed softly. What were your expectations? I'm uncertain. Perhaps a soul filled with gratitude, compassionate. Yet, you are so much more than that. Your intelligence, humor, strength, and beauty possess a captivating quality that effortlessly draws people in, often without their conscious awareness. A warmth unfurled within my chest, radiating outward. Years had passed since I had heard words like those directed at me. Not merely through flattery, but through honesty, with precision. I moved nearer to him, my fingertips grazing the edge of a box. What shall we do with this? At this moment, he gazed at me, the silence stretching between us like a taut string, unbroken and heavy with unspoken words. We take our time. We refrain from assigning a label to it. We simply allow it the space to thrive. Whatever it may be. I inclined my head in agreement. That resonated perfectly. As I loaded the last boxes into my car, I observed him meticulously arranging them, his hands tender despite the burden they bore. He was not merely rearranging objects, he was paying tribute to them. It was as if he grasped that they were not merely boxes, but vessels holding fragments of a life experienced. As we concluded our task, we found ourselves side by side, gazing into the open trunk. The street lay in silence, the air unmoving. He pivoted to meet my gaze. Is this truly the end? He inquired. Perhaps, I replied. Perhaps not, you can enlighten me. He smiled then, a subtle, authentic arc of his lips. My heart, once wary and tightly coiled, began to unfurl just a bit more. I firmly replied, no. It would be quite ordinary, really. He leaned in then, not for a kiss, but simply to press his forehead gently against mine. It was a moment steeped in intimacy, surpassing all else that could have transpired. Silence, rooted in reality. Indeed. As he withdrew, his fingers gently swept a lock of hair away from my cheek. I shall give you a call. I'll be waiting, I murmured. He ambled away, the gentle jingle of his keys punctuating the stillness. As he rounded the corner, I remained there, sunlight cascading over my shoulders, filled with emotion. In the stillness of that evening, I found myself enveloped by a sea of half-unpacked boxes, the air infused with the scent of cardboard mingling with the soothing aroma of lavender wafting from a newly plugged-in diffuser. Once more, I unearthed my old paintbrushes, laid them gently upon the table, and gazed intently at the untouched canvas before me. For the first time in years, a sense of liberation washed over me. I no longer felt ensnared. I felt seen. I experienced a profound sense of recognition, not due to the presence of another who completed me, but because he illuminated the truth that I was already complete within myself. Perhaps, just perhaps, something beautiful was starting anew, beyond the realm of farewell.